You're watching The Legal Breakdown. So, Glenn, there was a very unexpected byproduct of Judge Cannon's absurd and unconstitutional dismissal of Donald Trump's Florida case. Can you speak on what's happening now that's pretty much taking Republicans by surprise?
Yeah, Brian, I don't think anybody saw this one coming. As a result of Judge Cannon throwing out Donald Trump's classified documents case because, in her estimation, special counsel was not lawfully appointed, well, guess what? Hunter Biden's lawyers just filed a motion to throw out his criminal conviction up in Delaware. Why? Because he was prosecuted by another special counsel who was appointed under the same rules, regulations, and laws as Jack Smith was appointed. So now Hunter Biden's lawyers are saying, okay, we have looked at Judge Cannon's 93-page ruling saying special counsels are just not a thing. They can't be used the way they are currently used. And we saw one justice of the Supreme Court, Clarence Thomas, sort of jot off a little note to Judge Cannon saying, hey, Judge Cannon, why don't you look at this special counsel thing? That might be a way to help Donald Trump and dismiss his case down in Florida. And Hunter Biden's lawyers packaged it all up and they said, us too, we're going to claim special counsel is not a thing, not properly appointed. And because special counsel David Weiss, a different special counsel, was the one who headed up the prosecution of Hunter Biden in Delaware for his very minor gun offense that he seems to have committed, we want Hunter Biden's conviction thrown out too. You know, nobody could have seen the sort of confluence of circumstances that would have allowed a really bad legal decision by Judge Cannon down in Florida to try to help out Donald Trump, somehow boomeranging and potentially being used by Hunter Biden's lawyers to try to get his conviction thrown out.
I do feel like we need the caveat here that this isn't some backfire for Republicans. Like, we didn't come out of this on top. This isn't really something that we should celebrate. I don't care about Hunter Biden, and I'm not going to cheer him on just because he's a figure of the left. I think if he did something wrong, then he should be held to account for it, the same way that Menendez and Cuellar should be held to account, even though those guys are Democrats. So, I don't think that this is a win. I would caution against, for anybody watching, thinking that this is something to cheer on, because ultimately this whole concept of discarding special counsels is a gross miscarriage of justice.
100%, Brian, because here's the thing. Judge Cannon's decision to throw out Donald Trump's case by ginning up this concern about special counsel is nonsense. It's not supported in the law. 4 other federal judges rejected the same argument, and the Supreme Court, back in the Richard Nixon days, basically authored an opinion that suggested, no, special counsel is just fine, and special counsel or special prosecutor who issued this subpoena for Richard Nixon's tapes that were ultimately the downfall of Richard Nixon, it was a good subpoena, and Richard Nixon must comply. Now, if special counsel, special prosecutor was unlawful and unconstitutional, the Supreme Court would have caught it back then.
Right.
So, listen, the fact that there is this bogus legal opinion that was issued by Judge Cannon does not mean we should run around and say, well, now we're going to accept it, we're going to adopt it, and we're going to hope that it gets Democrats like Hunter Biden, who have been convicted, out from under the trouble that they experienced. That's not the way the rule of law works. It was a bad opinion in Florida. It's going to be a bad opinion anywhere else where somebody tries to use it, like in Delaware. Now, I will say, it has no precedential value. People might say, well, one federal judge ruled that special counsel is not lawful, so now don't all federal judges have to sort of conclude the same thing? The answer is hell no. 4 federal judges previously ruled special counsel is lawful, and that certainly didn't have an impact on Judge Cannon, who was desperate to do a favor for Donald Trump. So here's what will happen next moving forward. Now that this motion has been filed with the Delaware federal judge, Judge Norika, who presided over Hunter Biden's case, she will resolve this issue. It's almost certain she will go with the 4 other federal judges and the Supreme Court, all of whom said, no, special counsel, special prosecutors are just fine. And then that will get appealed up to the judicial circuit that covers Delaware, where Hunter Biden was prosecuted. That's the 3rd federal judicial circuit. Down in Florida, it's the 11th federal judicial circuit, 2 different circuit courts. And so this will work its way through both of those systems. And at the end of the day, I have to believe that there will be, I'm hesitating, Brian, because the Supreme Court might be the one to ultimately take this up, but there should be one unified rule, keeping in line with the Supreme Court precedent of Nixon, that special counsel, special prosecutors are lawful and constitutional.
And that actually lends itself to my next question, which was why would Hunter Biden's lawyers treat this as precedent? It's not even precedent if just a federal judge in the trial court rules as much. It would have to at least be a ruling in a circuit court. And so why would they, knowing that just one errant judge somewhere ruled incorrectly, by the way, that suddenly special counsels aren't constitutional, why would Hunter Biden's lawyers treat it as precedent? And as a second part to that, why would they treat it as precedent, knowing that it does give another judge here the opportunity to make another unconstitutional ruling in deference to Hunter Biden, knowing that will actually lend itself to helping Donald Trump in the end?
Yeah, so first of all, defense attorneys don't worry about the larger implications of the positions they take when they zealously represent a client. So first of all, hypothetically, if there was some new legal development, like a new Supreme Court case that helped Hunter Biden, but it also helped Donald Trump, it wouldn't matter. Hunter Biden's lawyers are obligated to zealously represent their client without respect to the impact on other potential defendants. But here's the thing. When you say, why would they treat it as precedent? I don't think they did treat it as precedent. Now, precedent is a word of art or a term of art in the law. So binding precedent, as you precisely indicated, is when a circuit court of appeals, like let's stay in Delaware, the 3rd Federal Circuit Court of Appeals has authority over the federal trial court in Delaware. So if that appellate court issues some proposition of law, they rule in some way, the trial judge who sits below that Federal Circuit Court of Appeals is obligated to apply that precedent. However, it only applies in that jurisdiction. Now, trial court judges don't set precedent. They can issue opinions, as Judge Cannon did down in Florida, and that can be used as what we call persuasive authority. In other words, there's a judge down here who decided a similar or identical issue in a particular way. We find her reasoning persuasive. I don't know that any learned lawyer could go that far, but let's stick with the hypothetical. We find it persuasive, so we're offering it to you, a Delaware trial court judge, to see if you find it persuasive as well. That's not precedent. That's what we call persuasive authority. So I think Hunter Biden's lawyers, being very experienced and accomplished lawyers, did not overstate the impact of Judge Cannon's ruling, but simply said, Judge, this issue has been decided differently by a judge down in Florida. We're offering you her rationale as bolstered by one Supreme Court justice's opinion, Clarence Thomas, and we're asking you to rule in the same way Judge Cannon ruled, which means you have to throw out Hunter Biden's conviction.
Okay, well, obviously, we will stay on top of this as it continues to work its way through and to the point where we actually get an answer to this question, because obviously the implications here will be pretty significant if yet another judge wrongly finds that special counsels are unconstitutional. So for those watching right now, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on this screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.